My name's Johnny Christmas. For those of you who have been attending Hackfest Canada in the past, you may recognize me. I think this is my 6th year here, perhaps my 7th year. I usually do much longer forms of talks or panels sometimes, but this year I wanted to do something different. I'm doing a quick lightning talk because I don't think that this topic needs much more than 20 minutes or so to get across, but it's something that I've been really passionate about for a large portion of my life. And most recently, I kind of rebooted it last year. And with COVID hitting and everything being in lockdown and the world being practically abandoned, I thought that was a great time to really jump up and get back into it. Here's what I looked like last year, so that may help you identify me easier. I love Hackfest Canada, and I just could not miss it this year, so I made sure that I find something that was going to be appropriate to show you all. I am a security researcher. I work for Grim, who you may have heard of, the security engineering firm. I'm a trainer and researcher there, and also I dabble in some AppSec for them when the need arises. I've done everything in security under the sun, from penetration testing to defensive security engineering to even the boring stuff like GRC, etc. So I've been around the block, but I wanted to maybe even take a break today from all of the computery technical stuff and talk about going outside, something that we all, I think, struggle with even when there's not a pandemic. And so perhaps this will be a great inspiration to you all to go outside and try something new that we can still consider hacking. What we're talking about today is urban exploration, and urban exploration is self-explanatory. It's the exploration of generally urban environments. However, that's not a hard and fast rule, and we're going to talk about some rules here, but we'll see that they're because it's generally an illegal activity, the rules are very flexible. The idea here is that there's so much out there that has been abandoned, forgotten, is being left to rot, that is amazing to go see. Literal doorways, portals into the past, buildings that have been closed down for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, where the insides haven't been touched since, and you can go inside these places and, with the exception of this destruction and graffiti, see what was going on in there 50 years ago. These buildings do get bought up and demolished or turned into something else, and so I'm a really big fan of going in, and not just for myself, but for documenting, for capturing what was in there, creating these videos and photographs and things, and sharing them with the world. And it's not just, of course, seeing what was going on in there when the building shut down, but also there's some really amazing artwork that goes on in these places as well. And so I'm a really big fan of capturing that. So I'm going to talk to you a bit today about how to get started, how to safely operate in these environments, and how to have a lot of fun whilst getting caught the least amount of times. First off, we do have to talk about a bunch of legal stuff, and I'm not a lawyer. And the laws, like all laws, vary based on whatever location you happen to be in. So definitely check your local laws, as they say. But generally, trespassing is your primary legal issue that you have here. In the US, and a lot of the things I'm going to discuss here are regarding US law because I'm from the US. Canadian and US law often overlaps most of the time, but do double check. Again, trespassing is what we're dealing with here. In the US, both criminal and civil liability can occur here. So you can be charged with criminal trespassing, which is where like a municipal entity, like a city or a state government, can bring a case against you for what you did, but also civil liability. Say if you damaged something, or you, by way of drawing attention to a way to get into an abandoned building, caused many more people to come in, and so much destruction occurred that the building became unviable and they couldn't sell it. Like, you might be personally liable for that. These are extreme circumstances. Generally, nobody cares. As long as you don't get injured in there and try to sue whoever owns it or what happens, or draw attention to it, you're usually going to be okay. But be aware that, you know, prison and fine can be a thing here. But again, in the US, it's usually so much of a pain to enforce, especially even to hunt you down and bring charges against you. Like, I put these videos on YouTube all the time. It's been fine. You can also be indicted, if you're found to be responsible for the injury or death of someone you brought in with you. If, say, their families wish to say that, oh, you cajoled this person into coming with you and you didn't really properly inform them of the risks involved, and they wouldn't have died if it wasn't for you. Like that could be a potential real legal case. Again, super rare, but things that can happen, and a risk that you need to accept and be aware of before you make the decision to do something like this. Aside from all of that, on-site concerns as far as legality goes is don't be suspicious, especially when you're on approach, when you're approaching the building that you're going to enter into. Keep any gear that you've brought with you inside your bag. Don't be walking around with a big, a crowbar and some lock cutters and doing one of these. Park far away from the building, and maybe 1 block, 2 blocks. If it's an abandoned building, generally there isn't many cars or vehicles of any sort parked in front of it. So if you're the one vehicle that's parked right there, police are going to be suspicious, neighbors are going to be suspicious, they may start investigating. Remove any of your gear before you exit the building, and don't put it on until you enter the building for obvious reasons. It looks very suspicious. Try to figure out how you're going to enter the building before you even begin approaching the building. Maybe come by, a week earlier or something. I like to fly a drone around and see if I can identify any means of entry before I actually enter. Or you can simply come down there, do a few walk-arounds, look around, and even if you identify some points of entry, usually with the exception of perhaps trespassing on land, if you don't go in, you're not breaking any laws. And so you can at least do your recon one day and then come back later and get inside very quickly. And that's the idea. That's why you do your recon ahead of time, so that you can show up, get inside, and disappear before anyone outside the building gets suspicious of what you're doing. And that's what I mean by the don't linger there, is don't hang out outside the building too long, even especially when you leave. Don't hang out outside. Don't start Instagramming all the pictures right away. Wait until you're away from the building. So the main issues here is beware that trespassing can have civil and criminal penalties, and don't be suspicious. Sorry, while I deal with my odd controls here. Here we go. So do your research. Know what you're getting into before you enter a building. Know what the building was used for. Look up for historical information on that building. This building we're seeing in the video here was a radio manufacturing company for Zenith radios back in the 1960s. The building was not used for this for decades, but it was used for many, many other things. Some of those things can involve chemicals. One building I discovered was actually used for asbestos manufacturing. So I didn't even bother going inside there. But know what the building was used for, know what to expect, so that you can, prepare accordingly. Talk to, if you can, other people who are other people who are doing this as well. Urban exploration folks tend to be extremely secretive and elusive. They often won't respond to you if you just DM them out of nowhere, because what they're doing is breaking the law. They don't like to share the locations that they know of because they don't want the secret to get out. They don't want people to come in and destroy things, and they don't want the cops to, be looking for new people to come in. And so you often, as far as forums and DMs and things like that, will have to become friends with them through the usual means before they're ever going to trust you enough to kind of start helping you, or maybe even inviting you along. But go ahead and Google. Go ahead and look on YouTube. YouTube and Instagram have become huge for urban exploration. So if you're looking for new sites, YouTube and Instagram are great places to start. You may still have to start doing some reconnaissance based on the information found in there, because a lot of urban exploration folks still like to hide the location of where the video takes place. And so you may have to start looking for, street signs and addresses, or addresses on paperwork inside of the buildings and things like that in order to figure out where it's at. As far as general reconnaissance of safety of the building and ways in, Google satellite maps is excellent. And then do your general walk around for your reconnaissance before deciding whether or not you're going to accept the risk of entering this building and seeing what's inside. One final risk to understand and accept here is to know your limits. These are physical limits. Your life is at stake. Know what you're capable of doing physically, and don't talk yourself up. Don't pretend like you're able to do more than you do. You might end up in a very bad situation because you couldn't accept that you have a physical limitation. And certainly, if you can, strive to exceed those. Strive to build those physical limitations up. I certainly do. I'm a big fan of physical fitness, and one of those reasons is because I regularly find how often it pays off in these situations here. Some general rules of thumbs, what I've listed over here. Can you walk 5+ miles in one session, over the course of 3 or 4 hours? Generally, that's the average I find when I do some urban exploration like this. And that's just inside a larger building. That's not including walking to and from wherever you may park to get to the location. That seems like a lot of miles for people. And I often find that it's actually not, because once you have this distraction of these really cool stuff you're investigating, 5 miles isn't a huge deal. But if you can't do it, if you have respiratory conditions, heart conditions, you're just not in this kind of cardiovascular shape, and 3 miles in and you're done for the day and you need to rest for an hour because you feel like you're going to die, now you might be inside of a dangerous building. You may need help and you can't get it. Even if you call 911, if they're not sure how to get in, they may not get to you in time if there's an extreme situation. If you are having, a cardiac arrest or something and you need an ambulance, you may be out of luck. Again, risk acceptance. Can you do 3 consecutive pull-ups? Can you pull yourself up onto a ledge that is taller than where your head is just once? Pull up, get your legs over. These are things that happen all the time in these buildings. A lot of times stairwells and things like that just don't exist anymore, or aren't the safest options to get to where you need to go. So being able to lift your own body weight is a very physical activity, and not just from the walking is what I'm getting at here. Can you lift and carry 70 pounds? Just a little bit. Can you pick up something that's 70 pounds and kind of scooch it in another direction? That comes in handy. I got this 70-pound, and you'll have to go ahead and do that kilogram conversion on your own there. But I got this 70-pound marker because that's what a lot of warehouse jobs here in the US put as like, hey, this is a minimum requirement to be able to handle the daily tasking of a warehouse worker. And I find that being able to move that kind of weight, even just a short distance, even a meter, is super useful, because you'll find things that are that heavy blocking doorways, blocking passages, blocking stairwells, and being able to move them out of the way grants you a lot more access. Whereas if you just don't have that kind of strength, you may be limited in where you're able to go, and that's really annoying. That's a really annoying situation where you can't get somewhere just because you just can't move this thing out of the way. Be aware of your own weight, how much your body weighs versus how much damage the structure has suffered. Again, your life is at risk. Don't, pretend like you don't weigh this much. Really, and you don't have to tell your friends how much you weigh. This is just a thing that you have to be aware of. These floors are often unstable. I always like to either bring a stick or find something really fast once I get inside, just to test the floors as I go along, especially as you get higher up. I don't know any urban explorer who's been doing it long enough who doesn't have that story of, oh yeah, we lost one of our friends in such and such city because she fell through the floor from the 5th floor or something like that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're overweight. It just means that know how much you weigh and constantly be judging that against the structural capabilities of the floor that you're on, and especially as the floor changes. That structure is completely unmaintained, and you can fall through at any minute. Make sure that you understand that and that you're confident in every single step that you're going to take next before you take that. And finally, here's one everyone forgets. Bring snacks. Take breaks. Take a rest. I think actually this is funny. Right here in the video was a point where we actually decided to take a break and have some snacks. So good timing on my part. This is cool. This is a water tower on top of the building. That's how large this radio factory was. But anyway, snacks, especially like high calorie snacks, high carbohydrate snacks. You want fats, you want carbohydrates. Great for kind of giving you that energy boost and getting you to keep going. It really sucks when you get halfway into a massive structure like this and you are just out of energy and you just can't go and you're like, we got to go. We have to go. I'm dead. I can't walk anymore. Take a break. Take a break somewhere safe. Take a break somewhere out of sight. Here we're dead center on the roof. So unless you're in one of these buildings way out here, you really can't see us. And aside from my friend here who decided to bring the neon orange jacket, we're generally camouflaged. So don't do that as well. But yeah, definitely feel free to take breaks. Bring a banana with you and some granola bars or some trail mix or something. That goes such a long way. And that's like the #1 point I tell everyone, like, hey, bring snacks. Make sure you bring snacks. Did you bring snacks? Bring snacks. Who doesn't like snacks? Talking about snacks, talking about what you're bringing, let's talk about what you're putting in that backpack. Lights. You need lots of lights, all kinds of lights, any sort of illumination. Other lights, small lights, big lights, maybe one really big light, lots of lights. But you don't want to pack a ton of lights. You want the lights that you pack to be effective so that you don't need a ton of them. You want a very bright, lightweight flashlight. So you want to find that really good weight to light ratio. You're going to be holding this thing the entire time. This can be hours, literally 3-4 hours where you're just holding this light. So a lot of people say, oh, I love my mag light that takes the 4 D-cell batteries and it weighs 15 pounds. Well, you're walking around with 15 pounds in your hands like this for 3 hours, you're going to be dead. And you're going to have one arm that looks like Popeye, like a huge forearm, and people will make fun of you for the rest of your life. So you don't want that. My favorite brands of lights are Phoenix and LED Lenser. I should flip this cam here. They make excellent weight ratio, cost to lumens ratio lights out there. I'm a big fan of a headlamp as well, for obvious reasons. It keeps your hands free. I do still like to do the headlamp plus a flashlight, just to be able to have that ample coverage. And one other thing I like to do is bring a larger lamp like you see here on the right and actually kind of strap that to my backpack strap. So it's just there and you get this huge floodlight that you can turn on and really blast a room full of light to help you safely assess what's going on. Make sure that all these lights are easy to turn on and off with gloved hands. Turning lights off can be a critical safety situation too, especially if you hear someone else, you hear something going on in the building, and you need to hide really quickly. Your lights can absolutely give you away. So being able to quickly turn those lights off and just stand still not only avoids you from being detected, it helps you to detect other people who are in there because they're going to have their lights on. So once you turn your lights off, you'll be able to see them and their lights on and see their movement patterns, more or less, hopefully. So again, make sure you can turn these lights on and off using gloved hands. You don't need dexterous fingers to be able to do this. And most, high quality work lights are going to be able to do that no problem because they're built with that in mind. Documenting is, I feel, a mandatory part of urban exploration. It's part of hacker culture. Sure, it's great to learn things and to see things and to take in something that nobody else has taken in, but sharing that, I believe, is critical. This is something that you must do. And you don't need to show your face, certainly, but you should show what you've seen. And because of that, you should be bringing the highest quality of recording equipment that you can afford, certainly. And that's because we want to document it as well as possible so it doesn't require multiple entries. Some people say, like, well, why would I do this? There's already 5 videos on YouTube of other people who have gone into this building. I don't need to waste my time. Things change even over the course of a year. We've visited this factory here 3 times within a month, and each time we visited, there was plenty of times where we said, this wasn't here before, this is moved, that stairwell didn't used to be blocked, someone was here, this was changed. Look at these 3 new murals that got painted. Things like that. So you just always want to bring cameras, because even if you're going back a week later, something cool may have popped up, or you may discover something you didn't discover before, or that no one had bothered to discover. You may discover a padlock that's rusted to the point where you can finally just whack it off with something, and now you can enter a new room. Just always be ready to document. I like to bring a camera that I just strap onto my chest, and I just have going. I don't like head-mounted cameras because I find it makes the viewer sick because you're constantly doing this. Whereas the chest mounted, you're rarely doing this. Usually your chest is a lot more stable. And so that's my recommendation on that. Something with a huge SD card and either enough replacement batteries or a large USB battery that you can just run to it. So you just turn it on and you can leave it for 4 hours and you don't have to worry about if it's recording or what it's recording. You just let it go. And then also, you're going to want to bring a camera, a still image camera, to really line up shots and get some great pictures. I really like that for what I'm doing here. Taking photographs of some really good murals and graffiti that you might come across along the way, or just getting some really spooky shots of spooky stuff. Our phones these days, especially, we're tech nerds, we're probably going to have some of the best phone cameras ever made on us at any given time. Our phones are phenomenal cameras now, both for video and still photography. There's practically nothing out there that beats the weight ratio to battery ratio to image quality than a modern smartphone. So you very likely already have most of the equipment you need to document what you need to document. Just be aware of battery life and storage capacity as well. I'm a big fan here of DJI's Osmo Pocket and their Action Cam. They're not as unreliable as all of the GoPro stuff. If you can't tell, I hate GoPro. Their stuff constantly fails on me. It seems ever since the GoPro 4s have been out, their products have just been garbage, and I never recommend them. DJIs aren't incredible, but they're more reliable, and so that's why I prefer them. And the quality, at least the video on the video side, is excellent. So definitely take a look at those, or do your own research and take what you like the best. Talking a little bit about safety, I wanted to put a nice gap in there between risk and safety before I just like beat you all down with like, this is dangerous and you shouldn't do it. This is dangerous and you shouldn't do it. That said, you can do things to kind of mitigate that danger. Bring mechanics gloves. These are these gloves you could see me wearing here in this video. They're gloves that are have a very high shear strength, so they don't slice open easily. They don't puncture that easily. They can take a lot of abrasion and not rub away. And they're nice and padded. They usually will have a great grip on them, and they're not expensive. You can get a really, just a fine pair of mechanics gloves for under $10 US, and they'll last you a very long time. And man, they're great. You're going to be touching and grabbing all sorts of things here that have stuff on them that you don't want to get inside of your body. Tetanus notwithstanding. Some things you're just going to have to be, punching out glass like you see here and removing glass and sharp metal and rust. And you're going to want gloves on that can protect you from those sorts of things. So not just like your average, gardening gloves, but some real good mechanics gloves. You can get them at any auto shop. You can get them at any home improvement store. That's probably the most important part of your kit next to the lights. You may want to bring a sealed N95 mask depending on what your research has told you, or just have it anyway just in case. If the building was made before 1965 or so, there's a very good chance it has had asbestos in it at some point. And N95 is the limit that you need in order to be able to filter out any remaining asbestos that might be floating around inside of there. Especially if you're going to be shuffling around and stirring up all that asbestos that may be on the floor. I was in a Wonder Bread factory in Buffalo, New York that had tons of asbestos just on one floor of it. And I was really glad that I had brought that mask, and I didn't hang out on that floor too often. But yeah, N95 masks are much easier to find these days than they were even 6-7 months ago, for obvious reasons. Make sure it's the kind that seals around your face, with the rubber mask with the big filters on the sides. You don't want the standard, paper mask that everyone wears. You want the one that's going to make a nice seal so that air can't get in from the sides, because you're dealing with asbestos, which can cause cancer. Be aware that those filters expire if they're unsealed. If they're just sitting out in the air, they do slowly break down. They'll have an expiration date on them. generally. And so you want to make sure that before you go for a dive that you're not using some old filters that aren't going to filter out that asbestos. And asbestos aside, it gets rid of the mold, it gets rid of anything else you just might not want to be breathing in the first place. That aside, bring some really good tough jeans, not your designer jeans, some really good old dad working in the yard jeans. I like to use Kevlar motorcycle jeans. You bring a hard hat. Hard hats are really easy to find now. I like skydiving hard hats, skydiving helmets, because they're small, they're form-fitting, and they have a lot of impact protection. Some nice steel-toed boots. When you should dress like you're going hiking. So dress for the weather, but also dress like you're going to be out in the woods having a lot of stuff poking and stabbing you and things like that, because you are. So think about it that way, like wear your hiking gear. Bring your buddies. You should have a buddy on site and you should have a buddy off site. So that, and the buddy off site should know, hey, if you haven't checked in X amount of hours, you might be hurt. Call the police, tell them where you're at. Getting a trespassing charge is always way better than, dying because you broke your leg in the middle of a place, and a broken leg normally wouldn't be fatal, except no one came for you and you couldn't get out. So, sorry, I got jerked it over a little bit. A lot of smart devices now have automated fall sensors where if you fall really hard and stop moving, it'll automatically call 911. My watch has that on it. It's a really cool feature. And then finally, if you can, call 911. Don't be afraid to call 911. Call 911, tell them how to enter the building, try to tell them where you're at. If you can start yelling when they get in there, do that. Again, dying from a non-fatal injury is way worse than being afraid of calling and getting convicted of a minor trespassing charge. So
yeah,
always call 911 if you need to. Yeah, yep, we're pretty much at the end here. You know what I'm going to do? I'll put the slide deck up on my GitHub so that you can go through these slides too. I talk about security bypass tools here, but generally, don't bother. It takes too long and you almost never need them. But I'll go ahead and put the slide deck up on my GitHub. It's github.com/JohnnyChristmas. I tried to get as close to 20 minutes as I can. But yeah, I've been Johnny Christmas. There's my social media down at the bottom, my Twitter, Instagram. I stream on Twitch a ton. There's my YouTube, and my GitHub is the same as my YouTube, just /JohnnyXmas. You'll find these slides there. I'll leave that one up so you can screenshot it or something like that. But I'll be around for Q&A today. Feel free to hit me up on social media as well for Q&A. Thanks, Hackfest Canada, for having me. This was great. Glad I was able to contribute for one more year. It's super cool.
Thank you very much. So
right.
your ID on our Discord is, so they can write directly to you on the
let me go
on the site.
Let me go find that.
Or just write, or go inside the TalkConf Q&A, and you can just write there, so they will know it's you.
TalkConf Q&A. There it is. I got it. Okay. Doing it now.
Yeah, because
okay.
I need
Anything
to
else?
start the next one.
Yep.
No.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Good. Thanks for having me.